All right, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Today is April 23rd, all day. My name is Rachel Watkins-Pederson with RCAW, Respite Association of Wisconsin. We also have our guest speaker here today, Kellie Pederson. Kellie is the Community Development Educator at the UW-Madison Extension in Bayfield County. So if you're familiar with Wisconsin, which I know most of you are, Bayfield is way north and very rural. And the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to give a high level of RCAW programs. When I ran the attendance report, or the registration report rather, it's a mix between family caregivers and professionals. So I definitely want to touch on some grants that can help families. If you're a family caregiver, but also if you're a professional, it's great for you to learn about that as well. So that's kind of how it's going to look. I'm going to go first, talk about RCAW, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kellie. And Leslie, my colleague, our program manager, is here. She manages the grants for family caregivers. So when I ran the attendance report like an hour ago, I'm like, hey, Les, can you come? So thank you, Leslie, last minute. I'm completely comfortable talking about our grants for family caregivers, but she really is the subject matter expert on the team. So never can hurt having the SME here with us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's get started. Oh no, I almost hit stop record. Yeah, I officially need to get my eyes checked. All right, so let's see. I just want to make sure, Les, you can see my screen, and I'll click present.
Looks good.
We will. All right, so thank you for coming. All right, we'll get started. I'm ready, and I hope everyone else is too. Some housekeeping. We're really informal. If you want to unmute and ask a question as I'm presenting, perfectly fine. If you're more comfortable typing it in the chat, you can absolutely type questions in the chat. If you don't want to talk or type a question in the chat and you want to kind of talk offline, feel free to absolutely get a hold of me. My email is at the end of the presentation. And without further ado, let's get started. If my slide would go. All right, so this presentation is high level. I do understand that some of these slides are a bit text heavy and can kind of make your eyes cross. However, once I share the presentation with you, it'll be on our website. We're also going to email it to anyone who registered. I wanted to make sure that it was a quick, easy guide. So if you're at your desk or on your phone, wherever you may be, if you see something that looks interesting to you, I wanted to ensure that there were hyperlinks. So that's my long-winded over-explaining why some of the slides are text-heavy. I wanted this to be a grab-and-go resource for you in the future. So without further ado, let's jump into grants and funding opportunities for family caregivers to get 3 different kinds of respite. We've got the Caregiver Respite Grant Program, the Supplemental Respite Grant Program, as well as Healthy Meals, Healthy Minds. Before I jump in, I always want to get to frequently asked questions before I start, because I'm going to guess that there's going to be a handful of people that think of this as I'm talking. Right now, family caregivers can apply for all 3 of these grants at the same time. All of our grants are contingent on our funding and how much funding we have left. And at this time, you can apply for all 3 of these grants, and you can reapply for the grants. And there are different reapplication windows, and all of that is located at the top of the grants webpage. So you can just click here when you have it, and this will take you directly to the Caregiver Respite Grant Program page, and then the rest of the slides that I'm going to talk about as well. So, Caregiver Respite Grant Program. This is a grant program that essentially helps family caregivers get over some of the barriers they may face while they're using other programs, or while they're on a waiting list, or if they've exhausted their funding. And what that means is you can hire the family caregiver, you can hire the respite care provider of your choice. We know sometimes family caregivers, not sometimes, a good chunk of the time, family caregivers use respite care reactively rather than proactively. And one of the biggest stresses is, who is going to come and care for my loved one? So we want you to be proactive with your respite care, but you can hire a friend, a family member, you can hire someone from an agency to come in your home. If your loved one would benefit from a camp, or depending on their level of care, sometimes an assisted living or a skilled nursing stay is required to meet their needs. So every grant or every grant application and family dynamic looks different. We serve the lifespan, so the age of the care recipient, we can serve any family. Well, you have to be eligible, and most are, and we'll get into that. But we serve family caregivers caring for care recipients across the lifespan. So it's up to 5 days of respite care within 30 days of the application approval, and yeah, it's a really great grant program, and this is the biggest use of our funds. So right now, you can reapply for this grant every 90 days. The supplemental respite grant program, at this time, families can reapply every 60 days. And what this is it doesn't pay for someone to come in and provide that meaningful engagement and create, creative opportunities to hang out and have fun with the care recipient, do something meaningful. This grant allows family caregivers to hire someone to help take the load off. It's like 57, more than half. Most family caregivers are still working, so they work a full-time job and come home and they are still working and providing care to others in the care recipient. So housekeeping, laundry, lawn care, sensory items, technology. When you click on the link to the web page, it'll take you to the allowable expenses. So when you see technology, it's to reduce social isolation, or technology to keep everyone safe. And there's more information on that grant page. The next is Healthy Meals, Healthy Minds. We are state and federally funded, and this grant, Healthy Minds, Healthy Meals, is because of a federal grant that not only us, but many organizations that were co-applicants applied for to enhance the, why am I blanking on the phrase, on the program? Help me out, Les. The National Strategy to Support Family Caregivers. Oh my gosh, that just left my brain. So we got money to enhance the national strategy, and goal number 3 is to increase access to services and supports. And we know that family caregivers oftentimes struggle in their mental health, or being able to afford wellness opportunities for themselves, as well as eat nutritious meals. So nutritious meal kits is an allowable expense. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to keep going. To be eligible for our grant programs for family caregivers, essentially these grants help family caregivers falling through the cracks. What that means is people who are unable to be served by another long-term care waiver or grant program, like the National Family NFCSP, National Family Caregiver Support Program, the Alzheimer's Family Caregiver Support Program, so AFCSP. So essentially, if you're waiting for services because you're waiting for the application process, or you're waiting for a case manager in your county to contact you, you can utilize our grants. Sometimes, depending on diagnosis or age, some families aren't eligible for other programs that can help them if they've exhausted that funding. And the key point I want to point out is the need more flexible support. So what that means is some counties run different. So if you're, let's just say, enrolled in the National Family Caregiver Support Program and you're receiving the funds, but an allowable expense in that county is not housekeeping, lawn care, technology, health, wellness type things, you can still be eligible for our grant programs because you can't get that respite or that form of respite elsewhere. And some families aren't eligible. So you do need to start at the ADRC or the county first and explore other options. But we essentially can catch anyone falling through the crack if they're not able to be served because they're waiting, if they've exhausted, or they need flexibility. we have 2 other grant programs, and I want to make sure I save time for Kelly. We're doing good on time. So we have 2 other grant programs for agencies or individuals that want to provide respite care. The group respite grant program, oftentimes, more times than not, there might be a conference or a support group, a book club, any kind of activity for family caregivers. The barrier is, I'd love to come, but I don't have anyone to care for my loved one. So what happens is agencies and organizations apply for the group respite grant, and they hire local respite care providers to come and provide that respite on site. So the family caregiver can attend something that's social, something that's educational, and the care recipient comes with them, and respite is provided on site for them. The startup grant is for individuals who want to start a new respite care program, or if they have an expanding or they have an existing one and they want to be able to expand their hours to serve more individuals. And that is up to $25,000 for the startup grant. And we'll get into the prerequisites and how to apply and what you have to do first to be eligible. And I do want to say that the startup is a highly competitive grant program. Okay, and what we're going to talk about today a little bit more in depth is the Co-op Technical Assistance Award. So for the Startup Respite Grant Program and the Co-op Technical Assistance, or TA, the TA award, the prerequisite is individuals have to complete bringing respite to your community first. That's a free workshop I'll talk about in a few slides. This slide goes through the steps if you're interested to apply for the Co-op TA award. And I'm going to get into some training. So we have free training for family caregivers and respite care providers. The first one I'm going to talk about is the National Respite Care Provider Training. This one is Wisconsin specific, and we don't charge for it. Learners can learn at their own pace. They can start and stop as they go. The typical learner is someone who wants to provide respite care, and we also have family caregivers go through this as well. Or we have a family caregiver ask their respite care provider that they want to hire to take this course. And there are 10 different modules, if you will, in the NRCPT. And at the end, you do earn a certificate of completion for 7 hours, because on average, that's about how long it takes to complete it from start to stop. This is bringing respite to your community. I just mentioned a few slides ago. This is the prerequisite to apply for the Startup Respite Grant Program or the Co-op TA Award. And we have people that take BRYC, bringing respite to your community, that don't intend to apply for those grants. So this is for someone who they might want to start a respite care program in their county, their tribe, their region of the state, if you will. And this really takes people through things that you don't know unless you learn. So things like insurance, just the technical stuff that to start your own business. And it's online, you work at your own pace. We recommend people take about 6 weeks to complete it. And at the end, in order to successfully complete it, you meet with our subject matter expert in respite care and respite businesses, Val Madsen. She also is the one that created Bringing Respite to Your Community. So you meet with her at the end and you present your business model, if you will, and then you successfully have completed it based on Val's feedback to us, and you're able to either take that knowledge for free and run with it, or apply for the Startup Respite Grant or the Co-op TA Award. We do have some other trainings available. All of our trainings are free. This one's for respite care providers, becoming an independent respite care provider, and also ways that they can market themselves to. And we have this kit, Knowledge, Ideas, and Tools for Family Caregivers. The important thing I want to point out is not every caregiver, well, first of all, people learn differently and in different ways, but not every caregiver wants to sit down and take another course. They may, awesome, they can take it in the traditional course outline, that it's laid out online in the learning management system. However, we didn't want to, for the lack of better terms, gatekeep the information that family caregivers can learn in these two courses. So on each course page, we do have the pertinent information. For instance, the how to hire, train, and retain respite care providers. We have clickable links to PDFs that are interview questions, how to run a background check, things to think about that you might not have thought about before hiring a respite care provider. So there's, two ways, like I said, that family caregivers can learn. They can take the course. They might not have time, the will, or the energy, and we understand that. So you can go to that page and just click all the resources, download them, print them, and do what you'd like with them. We also have the Wisconsin Respite Care Registry. This is a free service. It's a free consumer-based service. It essentially bridges people who need respite care, the family caregivers, to those who provide it, the respite care providers. And in order to be listed on the registry, you do have to successfully complete the NRCPT, so the National Respite Care Provider Training. There are also agencies on the registry. They're not every agency. There are agencies that have filled out the form and have requested to be on the registry, so they are able to take on new clients and help family caregivers in that way. So if you're a family caregiver, you go to the registry page and you can search by the county or tribe. And if you're looking for in-home respite care or facility-based respite care, and then it auto-populates providers in your tribe or your county that are available. And we don't run the background checks. We are not the employers of individuals listed on the registry. So it is up to the family caregiver to hire, to interview them, if they'd like, run a background check, and then make that informed decision for themselves if it's going to be a good fit for their family. This is the second to last slide. So if you're a professional, things that we've done to help you help others, if you will, we do have rack cards available on our website. The rack cards, there's like a general about us for RCAW. There's one that's specific to training, specific to grants for family caregivers, grants for providers, and you can order these. We cover the postage and the printing. It is $25 per, not per order, but if you wanted grants for family caregivers, the max is $25. If you wanted the about us, the max is $25. You can always come back and order more. However, we do, just because of our funding and availability, we do limit to $25 per subject per order. But we encourage you to order them, and they're also available in Spanish. I do want to point that out. This is how you can get a hold of me if you'd like. So here's our website, respitecarewi.org, and here's my email. And feel free to reach out after this or at any point in the future if there's anything that I can do to help you. All right, so are there any questions? Would anyone like to unmute first before we turn it over to Kelly? All right, Kelly, are you ready?
I sure am.
All right. Well, hi, Kelly. Kelly is the Community Development Educator, like I said, at the UW Division. Oh, it's a mouthful. UW Madison Division of Extension in Bayfield County. So Kelly is currently going through the TA process, and I thought there's not a better way to learn about the process than to learn about someone going through it. So I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and you can feel free to ask questions along the way, either verbally or in the chat. So take it away, Kelly. Thank you.
Great. Let me just make sure I can share what I want to share. So are you seeing just the slideshow now?
Yep, just the slideshow.
Okay, great. Yeah, hi everyone. UW Extension is where I work. Kellie Pederson, community development educator. And I've been working with a group of people in our area for the last few years, honestly, to start a caregiver co-op. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of kind of a walk you through the process, and note where we've received some funding from RCAW and some other partners that's kind of helped us move this project along as we go. Doot, doot, doot. Oh, I'm struggling to find my. Oh, okay, that's how it's going to go. Sorry, normally I have a couple screens when I give presentations, but I've got just a laptop today.
When
So,
people are watching and you're being recorded is when you kind of have that like, oh, what am I doing moment.
and I do want to just say, if you're, feel free to unmute at any time, stop me, ask questions. I'm really more than welcome. I would welcome all of that interaction with you. Type them in the chat. I'm sure Rachel can kind of follow along in the chat too.
Absolutely.
I'd be remiss to say that this is certainly not my project. This has been a labor of love from a variety of folks over multiple years. You'll see we have some folks that have been community advocates, a nursing student, and then some of our professional and technical staff to help move along this project of building a caregivers co-op in Bayfield County. Um, this project for in our area, if you're not familiar with Bayfield County, it's the second largest county in Wisconsin, way up north along Lake Superior, and one of the smallest counties by population. So a big geographic area, a really beautiful area, but not a ton of people over a big distance. This is a population pyramid. If you haven't looked at this, this is really just tells you who's in a community by age. And so you'll see at the bottom, it kind of tells you how many folks are under 5 years old. And then in the next column, 5 to 9, you'll notice that when we look at the Bayfield County population, you really see that the biggest chunk of our population is in their 60s and older. And so what that means is as those folks have been aging, right, there's just fewer people in the workforce to come and take care of our community needs. And also, we're really seeing a boom in the needs of caregivers. So this conversation and development of this co-op really came from kind of from an institutional perspective of like we have a lot of unmet needs in our community, and we're only seeing those grow. So 2019 through 2022, we started to have a lot of community conversations between local government, service providers, potential clients, people that were just noting kind of the significant unmet needs, social isolation, and volunteer programs that were really struggling to fill the gap of caring for folks in our community. And then we saw COVID, and the impacts were, all of those things just became, we lost a lot of caregivers. People just kind of got out of that world. And we just see kind of our demographics with that creating a real challenge in our community. So our group decided that we wanted to learn more about the problem. We had a lot of anecdotal information and a lot of boots on the ground consideration, but we just we couldn't really talk about our problem in terms of numbers. And so we were able to get a grant from the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. This grant is still open. They just looked to see today that they have their 2026 application. It's been a pretty consistent opportunity. So nice to be able to pair this with the TA startup from RCAW to help move a project forward. As someone who works on a lot of community projects, it's so rare that we're met with good funding. And this project has been so different in that there's willing and awesome understanding funders. So we've been really excited. And so we were able to move through a market study that we hired the ICA group to do. Let's see, I think that's the next slide. Yeah, so I think Faye, one of our consultants here from the ICA group, is actually on this call today. So we're happy to see Faye. Hi, Faye. Faye, nice to see you. I won't get into a ton about ICA except that we've had a wonderful experience working with them. Just a really great professional organization that has a lot of years in home care cooperative development. They've worked really well together with RCAW. They've been busy building a national network of home care cooperatives, and they really are kind of the leading people in this field that helps develop these co-ops. So we were really grateful to have them do our research as we moved forward. So we got back our market study, and it really confirmed the things that we knew, about our demographics, about people not getting their needs met, this significant shortage of caregivers, um, and then some of the challenges that were related to that. Some of the things that were exacerbating our challenge, our low Medicaid reimbursement rate in the state of Wisconsin, this workforce that's been shrinking based on age. And then also just some of the challenges because our county is so big and we're very rural and comparatively isolated. And so that report also helped us just kind of understand a little bit more about the framework from a caregiver perspective, low pay and benefits, challenging schedules, not a lot of training and career paths, and then not a ton of supervision or support. And so just seeing that there's certainly an essential part of our world, but not one that's getting nearly enough support. And so that told us like, wow, there's really something here. We want to continue working on this problem, but we are not quite clear what model might fit. And so RCAW, we were able to get a grant from RCAW at that point to hire ICA again to help build out a feasibility study. So the market study kind of tells you like, what does this look like? But the feasibility is like, really, how do we create like a business case scenario? What does this look like in a more nuts and bolts kind of way? What kind of model could we move forward in our community? And so we started to work with ICA group and that 2023 through 2024. And what we found was really exciting to us, right? We recognized that there was a business model that could exist, that we really had to focus on this balance of how clients came to us, some private pay, some VA clients, some reimbursement through Medicaid, and that a pretty small size cooperative could work. So as few as 5 to 6 caregivers, those were more towards full-time caregivers, and one administrator would actually sort of build this model out. We
Kelly,
were,
I'm
yep.
sorry, can you repeat? So you said one administrator, the group again?
Yeah, so this is what our model kind of Faye was able to model out a few different sizes and scales.
Okay.
And the smallest of that was 5 to 6 caregivers and one administrator was like a functioning model. I will say one of the things that's changed since we've been working through this was the VA reimbursement rate. It was cut almost in half. And so that kind of changed that scale a little bit too. All of these things are sort of a moving target as we go. But we were really buoyed by the fact that like something that we could imagine on a scale that we thought we could pull off would
Yeah.
be feasible.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
at
you.
least as a starting point, right? Like it wasn't,
Yes,
I think I don't want people to attach to these numbers specifically, but at
agreed.
least we were able to show that it doesn't need to be 50 or 100 people to even get anything off the ground.
Yeah, thanks for trying to get that. And so noting that in area, I think it's not as much full-time caregivers, but likely a lot of part-time caregivers focusing in on fewer hours in communities that they live in with a very small number of clients. And so, but I think the point being that we were like, oh, this is possible. This is functional. And then the likely services that we really saw this significant need for these personal care services, and then supportive home care services as well. Just recognizing who is in this area providing these, the kind of model that they're using, and where we're seeing a lot of things fall through the cracks. And people just not getting their needs met. We we also started to just understand a little bit more about the community impacts through this around just investing more in caregivers. So recognizing the impacts on the community, the impacts on people they're serving, and then just quality of life for caregivers. And so I think one of the things that we really learned through this process was that when we had started these conversations, what we had in the room was people that were really interested in receiving care or imagined that they would need that. Not so much people providing care. And so when we had thought about a cooperative, we thought it would be more of a consumer-led cooperative. So the cooperative members would be folks that were receiving care, not so much providing the care. And as we started to learn more, a couple things. One is we just really understood more about the worker ownership model and realized like why it's so essential. And two, there is there's a lane of success here, and that is where we've seen the lane of success is in these worker-owned models. And so we decided to kind of pivot to really learning about that and focusing on that. I don't know how much you all want to know about a worker-owned model. There's like maybe 2 or 3 slides, and I'll just keep it short.
No,
But if
this is great, Kelly. This is like the this is perfect for someone who might be interested in it. It's kind of
Okay,
yeah, this is
great.
great.
Um, well, one of the things that we really appreciated was just this idea of these better outcomes for workers, which certainly translate to better outcome for people receiving care. So, worker-owned businesses just tend to invest more in their caregivers. So more on the job training and support, advancement, better wages, that satisfaction that comes with ownership and voice, and then also seeing some dividends around people wanting to support that model from a consumer end as well. So this idea of really finding a model that helps to elevate the work of the caregiver, which we know is this essential part of our communities. Um, a little bit on this. So it is just a legal, a co-op is a legal entity, and the key is that it's collectively owned by members, and that it's democratically controlled. Those are really kind of the key pieces of a worker-owned co-op. Um, we the other piece, this is just kind of a diagram, which again, I won't go too far into, but really the idea is that the owner members elect from their membership a board of directors. That board of directors oversees the management structure that's in the co-op, which manages the employees, which we remember are made up of members. So there's kind of this circular piece that really has, where an individual worker's voice is really what sort of perpetuates the decision-making process in a cooperative. These are some co-op principles, but I think the other thing that it really fit was that there's just a lot of emphasis on the caregiver as like a whole person, and we just really started to understand how that translates into better care. And then the other thing is that it's not, there are, I think this is a little bit old, but this is, it's a tested model. So we certainly have several functioning worker-owned home care businesses around the country. We were really excited to see one in Wisconsin because we know, each state has a little bit of a different landscape in terms of reimbursement and support. And so we were really excited to see one of the older ones that exists was a neighbor that we could call on. The other thing, what was that?
Sorry to cut you off. It just like looking at Washington, it's like that's incredible.
Yeah, we particularly because we're like in a rural isolated area, we were really
Yeah.
excited to see some of folks that were kind of way up in Washington and kind of these gateway recreational communities where you have a lot of destination retirement and
Yeah.
so really awesome to see sort of how these function, and certainly that they function in rural areas too, which was important for us to understand.
Yeah.
Part of how we started to get to know that too was there's a national conference every year that ICA Group helps put together. It's a really well-connected community. ICA Group has also been working on building a cooperative to support these co-ops. But just such a cool crew, so grassroots, so empowered, just really seeing people truly like was like this is the kind of group of caregivers that we want to elevate, right? People that are just so passionate about the world of caregiving and really understand the needs of their clients because of this kind of deep relationship that they've been in, and want to make sure that everybody's needs are met. So kind of this, we were really, I say that we sort of drank the Kool-Aid, but we certainly did, really recognizing this as like a cool model. So with that, we were like, all right, we've pivoted to this model. Let's go get some caregivers because that's really what we need to make this model work. The crux of a co-op is not that it's started by institutions. It's started by people that want to work the co-op, that want to be, want to create this. And so Just last year, leading up to that, we started to work on some caregiver recruitment. So we did a series of sessions out in the community, a couple rounds of them, getting feedback, really trying to understand more about caregiver perspective, their needs, their frustrations, their realities. Um, we had been kind of imagining from the care receiver perspective, this idea of what one of our folks advocates talks about is the visiting nurse model. So a caregiver being able to come in and do a variety of things, not just and that was really what we were hearing from caregivers too, of like so frustrating when you go in and you see these things, but you kind of can only do certain things. So we were hearing just some of these systemic issues from both sides that make this landscape so tough. Also recognizing from our caregivers, they were like, we don't really understand this co-op situation. Like there was a lot to grasp. Is it actually exist yet? So we also recognize that like as a group, we had some great caregivers really come and speak truth to this group. And one of them was like, we are burned out and underpaid. I don't know that we have that like it's just another thing to try and think about how to walk through this whole process kind of in an unsupported way to start a new business. And so that was we heard that, so we really heard from them like this plan is not quite cooked enough. There's been a lot of great work, but like we're still not there. That we really needed to articulate the model more, that we needed to figure out how to include incentives for caregivers in this like building stage. And that there really needed to be a lot of training because we were just missing, the idea. The conceptually a co-op seemed really interesting, but like a lot of understanding that goes in to figure out how you as a worker would sort of participate in that system and how that would be beneficial as opposed to like cumbersome. And then we also saw that there was just some business systems that we could help build out so that there was more of a path to success for co-op members. And so again, we were so RCAW to the rescue. We were able to get a TA grant here, which was really helpful so that we could continue working with RCAW and get an administrative developer to help kind of build out these systems for this eventual co-op. We also created some stipends to train our founding members in this cooperative understanding and to get that governance system down. While they were making some key business decisions. Because again, we recognize that folks were like, I can't just do this on the side. Like I'm not making enough to be able to like really invest, even though this is an investment, in something that they will own in the end. So in December 2025, we were able to hire an administrative developer. Our county stepped up and said we can work this through our system. So we have a short-term position of someone who has been working on further in the business model, and then we'll start doing some of the back-end systems and kind of paving the way for licensing and marketing and all those things that go into starting a business. The other piece of that and so we put that all back out to our community, and we actually were able to find some founding members that were excited. So we have 4 that are on board, and maybe a 5th one that might be joining late, which we'd be really excited about because that kind of hits that number that we were hoping for. We're seeing a mix of folks that are newer and longtime caregivers, a big mix of ages. And some interest and experience both in co-ops and entrepreneurship. So we're really excited about the group that we have. And we also felt like there was so many like sort of synergies in their interviews of people that were just like caring for people and really wanted to make sure that all of their needs were met and also expressing a deep frustration in the systems that they were working in, feeling unsupported, feeling like they didn't quite have enough voice. And so really there was a lot of ideological alignment of the folks that we interviewed as well, which was very exciting. So we are now starting in May. This group will be getting together to do this stipended governance training. I thought there was a slide here from our UW Extension Center for Cooperatives. We have a great cooperative development center. Kristen Forty Herkus has been working with us throughout this process. And so she has really kind of taken the lead on developing this, what I think is a really innovative approach to train folks in this governance model and really modern model governance while while they're making these early fundamental business decisions. So we have kind of a system set up where they'll be meeting weekly with a couple of big workshop days in there. And that administrative lead is reporting to the group and sharing info so that she can get feedback on key decisions. And so the idea is that by this summer, that this group of folks will be able to launch their co-op as a licensed business. Yeah, so that is kind of the trajectory that we're on. And of course, when I do this, I just think like if anyone is following this, right? Like I sure want to know like how might we shorten this process? And so there's definitely some lessons learned. I mean, there was things where we were a little bit slowed down from COVID and other pieces, but so just a couple things that I think would be helpful if someone were trying to repeat this process, only, improve it. We would really just have begin with a worker co-op in mind. It just seems like the path, and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to reinvent, and it just seems like this is the lane that exists that has a track record of some success, and so we would have just started there. Hindsight being 2020. We spent a lot of time gathering data, which is important, but we're also seeing that there's like a body of work now that's out there. Some of the studies that RCAW has done, we're just seeing more and more data. And so certainly you always have to bring that into a local context. But I think perhaps we could have narrowed that part to success in using, and given what exists now that didn't before. And some of the great work that RCAW has done with ICA group altogether, some new things that are out there. We think that this realm of really providing education training that's funded for caregivers is a great way to go. I mean, that really changed the game of who seemed to be willing to jump on. And then just building that caregiver voice in so much earlier. So there's a couple of lessons. Faye just is back on there too. Faye, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, if you'd let me, I think many of these lessons are, or all of them are extremely important for any other group. And the RCAW co-op development TA that we're sharing about today is also designed to shorten the process, because I wanted to make sure people understood Kellie's describing a process that this group in Bayfield is going through that is supported by RCAW, but also began before this new TA program existed. So they were figuring out a lot of stuff on their own, or with support from people like me, but not with this program in place. And so that does change the process a little bit for groups going forward that are kind of benefiting from what groups like the Bayfield group have done.
Thanks, Faye. Thanks for that clarification. And I think partly I wanted to share this just because I wouldn't want someone to be daunted by the length of our process, because I certainly see the supports that are in place now that weren't necessarily there, when we were starting, that seemed to me to be like, boy, thanks for taking all these tough lessons learned and like shortening what I think is the life from ideation to implementation is huge.
Yeah. And a good example of that is Kristen from the Cooperative Center at UW right now has been doing outreach with some communities in Greene County. And it was a similar thing where at first they were working with, or they are still working with, a community organization, but now those community organizations have identified actual potential future co-op members who are going to do the BRYC, bringing respite to your community training, and kind of start the process that's now available through RCAW. So maybe a little bit of both. Still starting at the community organization level, but bringing in caregivers earlier on, like you're saying, Kellie, and starting on that path that's now available.
I do see, thank you for that, Faye. I do see a question in the chat I want to make sure we get to. Caitlin asked, once the co-op officially launches, what does Extension's role look like? And then what is required of you as the organizing entity?
So so this is not, Extension has been involved in cooperative startup in the past. So we are always willing to serve in an advisory capacity to kind of move to help support things along. I would imagine there might be some additional support needed in finding funds if they need, or perhaps there's some pieces around further data that they might need. We have, kind of a suite of folks that have been in that advisory role. But part of the nature of a co-op, right, is that the idea is that eventually we will not be in charge of this, and so I think we're really willing to take direction from our co-op as it launches to guide us in the kinds of support that might be most helpful. Certainly, Kristen and our folks at the UW Center for Cooperatives, their process is, they stay engaged for some time as well to make sure that things are moving smoothly with new co-ops. And so I think there's support that exists. But I think it really will be up to the co-op to decide how and when they might need that.
Yeah, very, very true. Caitlin gave a thumbs up, so thank you for that. Are there any other questions?
Kellie, would it be all right if I jumped in with a quick question? So if someone
sure.
is here today and they thought this felt interesting or felt like a good path for them, what is the very next action they should take? I'm a very much a next steps person, and sometimes all of that information is great. But I guess in a thinking about things linearly, what should someone do first if they're interested in this?
I would find two or three people that think the same as you, that you think would be interested as well, because the very nature of a co-op is that it is a group effort, and so I would find at least two or three people that you think would be interested um, in working on this kind of project. And then I would reach out to you all right away to review what that TA process looks like for co-op startup and see if we fell into that category right away. Especially if it was a group of founding caregivers that were interested. I think you guys have such a great process now of those next steps just laid right out. But at the other piece is, extension does exist in across the country. Certainly our folks like the ADRC folks, there's a wealth of information and support if you're in an area that seems like it's a bit of a caregiving desert. I know that there are other institutions and agencies that are concerned as well. And so at the very least, just connecting with them to make sure that there isn't an effort already underway, perhaps, or something that you could join in with. But I do think that, particularly in the worker-owned co-op, there has to be a caregiver voice very early on. And so if that isn't you, figuring out how to connect to caregivers that might be interested is again, something I wish we would have been able to do earlier on.
That's another reason we appreciate you sharing your wisdom so much, is you're kind of verbalizing to individuals, not how to cut, but how to get there faster, right? Kind of learn from lessons learned, if you will.
Yeah, and we really did think that the consumer-led co-op was an option. I mean, that was just because that was who we had. And so I don't think that we were I think that was still a good notion, but you just see, because of the way reimbursement works and all of that, it's such a narrow margin. It's a narrow margin industry. There seems like there's a narrow lane to success that's been built. And so, there was a lot of consternation in our group to move away from what felt like a client-centered approach to more of a worker-centered approach. And so, but I think sometimes you have to go where the path is.
Yeah.
And I'm imagining that there still might be some invention that comes from the group in perhaps finding other ways to center client voice. But at least we see in the worker co-op realm that clients are happier. I mean, that is, they tend to stay with their caregivers longer. And some of that research that ICA has shown out. Caitlin, I see you have your hand up. Hit us.
I do. I figured it'd be easier to just ask than type.
Thanks.
So I come at this from a systems level, thinking about actually what this could look like in another state. So I appreciate you sharing your Wisconsin space with me. Um, what I'm curious about, specifically, Kelly, what you just mentioned about coming at it from a caregiver approach versus a client approach. Um, Wondering what the other co-ops across the country are doing in terms of, are these caregivers all caring for the same types of clients? Do we see, for example, are we seeing a co-op that serves both people living with dementia and maybe someone with an intellectual disability? What does that look like? Do we see that it could be across the lifespan or across the respite need, or does it really become more niche based on the co-op?
That's great. I'm going to tag Faye here because Faye has this benefit of really having a national vantage point and has been in the co-op development space for a long time.
Yeah, good question. We see the co-op serving a variety of needs, but mostly focused on adult populations. So both older adults as well as adults with disabilities. I'm not sure why there's not as much of a focus on serving children. I would guess that at least in some locations, it just has to do with the different public pay programs and licensing.
Sorry to interrupt you. You froze for a little bit. I don't know if it was,
Oh,
I just got your internet connection's unstable, so it could have just been for me. Did Faith freeze for everyone else? Because maybe if you could repeat.
She did not.
Oh, so that was just me. I'm sorry I interrupted you then.
no problem. I would have believed it was me because my internet often freezes. Um,
Okay.
but we see them mostly serving adult populations, and different co-ops may specialize on really doing outreach to families who have family members with dementia, or to serving hospice clients, or to making sure that the community knows they're available for short-term, temporary respite needs. So I think it's adaptable to the community's needs and maybe the skills and interests of the group, and also requires some research and an understanding of the payer and sort of like public program landscape. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Caitlin, for coming today. Well, are there any other
I
questions?
see one more here. It says, I'm very new to the co-op model. What's the benefit to the worker to joining a co-op like this? Faye, I'm going to let you tag that one too.
Okay, I'll keep going. I think the benefit is having a seat at the table when decisions are made about your workplace. So, home care is a very tough business. And, many service industries, many social service industries are a very tough business from the business side of things. They don't bring in a lot of money. And in a traditional business, that means that business owners or operators may be trying to cut corners in terms of worker compensation or worker benefits or training programs. But in a worker co-op, because it's the workers who own the business and are making decisions about basic business decisions, from compensation to training programs to bonuses, to scheduling decisions. There really is a sensitivity to the experience of workers. And so I think if you work at a co-op, you're working for yourselves, and you're working for people who understand your needs. And then beyond that, there's an opportunity to join the board of directors and take more leadership in guiding business decisions. And then I think there's also just enhanced community from being part of a group effort, especially in a job like home care that can be really isolating because you're working in people's homes. You're not necessarily going to a centralized office or workplace. Having opportunities to gather with your co-owners and your co-members brings a lot of support, a support to the work. And we do see that worker co-ops across the country pay more than non-co-op businesses. So it's not just they're not just talking that talk, they really are walking it. even when there's not a lot of money to go around, they do pay more and offer more benefits.
Thanks, Faye, for pinching on that one. I appreciate it. I said one more question here. It says, what do you think is the secret sauce to buy in to create a co-op? We know that things require time, energy, bandwidth, etc. from often already overtaxed people can be difficult, even in the best of volunteer time circumstances. What is the secret to getting that buy-in? I think I really appreciate that because we struggled with that in our conversations, kind of in our initial first few rounds of recruiting, really concurred with what what you've stated in that question. A few things that we found. One was recognizing that the time that this will take needs to be paid in some way. Just that there are co-ops that start from just a passionate group of individuals, but we did not see that path in our community. And so recognizing that a stipend, also, I think the other piece is like noting that there would be some support and really describing what that support could look like so that people felt like there is a group of people trying to give your business the best chance of success to move forward, so that that really felt like you're not in this alone, even though you're going to have to make these decisions. So I think that part happened. The other thing is when I look at who we actually have, it is all folks that have, almost all of them have had kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, and so have gone through the process of business startup or have worked for themselves in the past. And so kind of I think there's something about that lens that feels like this is kind of a risk, but it was a risk that I think people have taken before. So I'm not sure if that's common in co-ops, but that is definitely who I saw was kind of finally being attracted to that process. The other thing that we see is just, I mean, I feel like what really struck me when I was able to attend the national conference was like how passionate of caregivers folks are, but also people with a little bit of bandwidth to say, and this has to change. And I feel like I have some capacity to do that. So I also see that in our co-op, the people that have been attracted to this have a little bit of bandwidth. None of them have children. There's like a little bit of a narrowing that's happened. So I think that looking at some of what they've done in the past, I'm like, oh, you see yourselves as someone with a voice in the community and something to say on this topic, whether it's because of a bad experience, in the situations that they've been working in or taking care of relatives. So I felt like there's some kind of, narrowing it. Clearly, this at this startup phase isn't going to reflect everybody. I certainly think that in the next phase, when there's more of a there, when a lot of these preliminary decisions have been made, I think their recruitment will get easier for this project. But there's something about this kind of entrepreneur mindset too that I was seeing. And this sort of agency and willingness and capacity to be able to like do a little bit more in this upfront part. So hopefully that answered your question. I have such a small N, it's like an N of 5 or 6 here. So it's, and Faye might have a better reflection on that too. Okay, looks like people are kind of ready to, we have one more here. Can I follow up with asking what the support the state and federal government or other LTC national advocacy agencies are providing to support this model? I will say just only knowing about the landscape, and then maybe Faye can mention it, obviously RCA, when I was talking to other people starting co-ops elsewhere, I realized how fortunate we are between the WEDEC grant money and the RCAW money specifically for co-ops in the state of Wisconsin. That seems very unusual. Certainly the work that Faye's organization is doing around Elevate the co-op to support co-ops, I think is bringing some other things to bear. Faye, do you have anything else around state and federal government?
I think there's growing awareness, but still not adequate. RCAW has really been innovative in seeing business development at all, and beyond that, cooperative development as being a solution to addressing a shortage of respite in Wisconsin. And I know that Lisa Schneider, who's the executive director, and her whole team, some of whom are here, are interested in seeing that model spread beyond Wisconsin. And so they would be a great resource in potentially bringing that to sort of peer organizations in other states. Historically, USDA rural development funds have been have supported a lot of cooperative development work, including in home care. But the program has been reformulated a little bit. And I think that there are legislators in certain states who are interested, but it's definitely an area we have to do more work.
And it looks like Elizabeth also noted that area agencies on aging and ADRCs have great resources nationally.
Good stuff. Kelly, thank you so much. Faye, thank you for coming and sharing everything that you shared as well. Anyone that joined, we really appreciate this. Don't be a stranger. You have our email. You will get a follow-up email from me by the end of the day tomorrow. Of course, Faye, with the recording, and I can share my slides, Kelly, if you're willing. I'd love to be able to share yours if you need to check
For sure.
some. So don't be a stranger. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Thank you.